Day parade in Washington, D.C. And so that will be happening tomorrow afternoon for our it's kind of a
Awesome.
cool thing.
Thank you.
So,
Yay. All right, so our next association meeting will be September 12th. It's not on the pipeline, it's not listed, but it is September 12th. And we'll get more information from our communications on
what time, and
Yeah.
maybe altering our
we might be changing those
time
four
by
locations.
up to 30 minutes, depending on where we're gonna.
And then with that said, that is really the end of our meeting. We now want to introduce the J team who are going to come up and give us lots of information. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is John Fink. I am the J Team's detective. This is our team. There's Demetri Rasai, Christian Marin, and John Lytle is also our K-9 officer. You'll get to meet at least one or maybe both of his completely adorable K-9s who you will immediately forget about us and enjoy their presence. So we're just going to come and talk about a couple of the things that we've noticed on campus that have been happening in recent years related to narcotics issues and answer any questions that you guys might have. And with that, I'll let
yeah, so sorry some of the display got busted because of the heat. We kind of take it around everywhere we go. So pretty much everything that we've been seeing, we work hand in hand with any school deputies. So Hensley, we got a group of new school deputies, but whatever information they get relayed or when the student goes up to the principal's office for any sort of narcotic related incident, which would be right now, the biggest things right now are probably vapes. If you guys have heard of them, seen them. We don't really deal with hardcore drugs. We deal with them, but not as a school. We haven't seen any kind of uprising or like issues going on with heavy narcotics. There is narcotics in our valley, obviously. We deal with that a lot. We try to handle it as best we can. We get a lot of crime suppressions that we do outside of just the juvenile intervention team. So what we do is whenever they have any information pertaining to the sales of THC, vapes, e-cigs, any of that information, they get relayed to us. Most of those kids or students get diverted just because that's what the district attorney has suggested, or their directives came down to our detectives that it should be diverted. So there's kind of a slap on the wrist.
So, diversion, I'll take a look. This is kind of the detective side of it. So diversion is where if we find a student that has a vape, or if we find somebody that is a juvenile that's selling vapes or narcotics related items to other students on campus, we write a criminal report and we send that off to either Silmar, juvenile hall, or whatever, whatever juvenile hall or juvenile detention center is going to handle that case, the court process. They are immediately referring students to diversion. So they are not getting any sort of criminal charges, they're not getting any penalties, they're just immediately saying that these students, they're young, they don't need a criminal record, they need some sort of help or some sort of program to help them learn how to not associate with that type of stuff, not get involved in narcotics. That's not our choice. Those are the directives that are coming down. So we refer the case for filing, and most of the time, 99% of the time, it is dismissed and referred for diversion. Unless it's a very, very serious offense, will it be anything that the court system will even prosecute in any way, shape, or form.
And just this week, Silmar did close down, so we don't have Silmar Juvenile Hall anymore. We're directed to take them all the way down to Silmar now. And those are just obviously serious offenses. Most of the narcotic cases that we deal with or that we get passed on to us, what we try to do is the kids know that what's right and what's wrong. Most of these kids that we've interviewed, that we've spoken to, not just here, but at Har, Valencia, Casate, all throughout the district, what they do is they provide us information and we try to work it, right? Because there has to be a person who's giving it to the students. The students aren't just going out there and buying it themselves. And that's where we try to kind of mitigate the issue. If it's a vape shop out here, if it's an adult. If you look through our social media account, there has been, we've been involved in the sales of, someone had a garage full of it was a personal vape store for students. And they were just going out there, and it all gets seen on social media, And that's the information that we try to gather when we go out there and interview kids. You'll see us around campus. If Hensley sees anything or if he has any information that's provided to us. The biggest thing that we want to relay to you guys as parents, obviously, is we're a resource. We've gone to parents' houses before. We have no problem talking to you, speaking with the student. All that we want is information. They're not in any trouble. Most of the stuff is getting diverted, but if it's an adult or if it's someone that's using a child, or they're still children, they're underage. If they're using that student for means of gaining monetary value for their own personal, they don't want to work and that's what they want to do. Those are the people that we want to kind of bring to attention to our detective, or ultimately put in jail. Because if they're selling it to our kids or kids in the valley, we don't know what's in it. They're not being monitored as in a cigarette shop down the street, the one on Bouquet and Valencia. They don't have any regulations. A lot of these kids, they don't know the effects or anything that happens when they do inhale or any of that stuff. We've found THCs and vapes that are laced with other sort of narcotics in the past. That has happened. Recently, we work overtime a lot. So I think the most recent one was at concerts in the park. It was a teenager, and unfortunately she overdosed. But luckily there was a deputy there that was able to stabilize the situation. Paramedics were on scene, so she didn't pass away. But we were there and we were able to gather some information, which we worked, and later on, obviously apprehended the person who was responsible for that type of stuff. So if you ever feel that you need to speak with someone outside of Deputy Hensley, or even if you don't feel comfortable talking to just a normal deputy, and you feel like, hey, I kind of want this to be a little more time consuming, or it has some sort of workable information, whether it be social media, a student on campus, or any of that, we're here to help you. And that goes for anyone on any campus. That's what we're here for.
So the things that we mostly see on campuses are stuff that kids can somehow get their hands on, because they can't go buy this stuff. They don't have contacts like adults do about other places they can go. They might have, somebody that they know that used to be their friend who is an adult now that may have a contact on where to buy these things. But talking about stuff they can find at home, stuff that they can huff, stuff that they can smoke, their pills from their parents, things like that, is what they're most easily get their hands on. And now this vape stuff is a big, big deal. It's all flavored tobacco. It's cool for the kids. It's blah, 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 whatever. And the way that they get their hands on these things is through social media. That's the biggest thing. It's hard for a parent to maintain somebody's phone, your own kid's phone, and what they're going through, and the sites that they have access to, and whatever programs they have on their phones. They're bombarded with ads and different things, the algorithms that show up with the whatever it is that they're searching for, that the internet thinks that they need to see that's okay for them. And they end up finding their way, or they hear it from a friend on who to talk to, and they use these TikTok and Telegram and Instagram and insert anygram, doesn't matter, that they can talk to somebody and find a way to buy it from somebody who can buy it, which is an adult. So
Cash App, they use Cash App too.
Yeah,
So
so-
contact dealers through Cash App and these sites. No, there's not really a record of it. So
Yes.
if you have more access to your kids' phones, just look for that stuff.
Yeah, just pay attention to your kids' phones. Tell your friends to pay attention to their kids' phones. It's your guys' responsibility and your guys' obligation. They don't, unless your kid's got a job and they're paying for their own cell phone, which I doubt it, it's still your cell phone, it's your kid, it's your cell phone. So you have every right to go through it, manage your parental securities, make sure that you have the phone sharing plan or whatever, so you can look at their stuff whenever you want and find out whatever it is that they're doing. That way you can prevent them from doing it, and also if there is something that's spontaneous, or something that pops up that you think is inappropriate, to if they're trying to purchase something, or vapes or narcotics or something, then you can let us know. And all that stuff is cool. It may be hard for you to monitor as a parent, but for us, when we write search warrants, we get so much good information. So that's stuff that we can do on the detective side, on the workup side, where we write a search warrant to somebody's page, and it shows all of the people that they've contacted and how many times they've met up with somebody to sell whatever it is that they're selling. And so that's really good information for us. So definitely keep that in mind. And especially for the principal and the school staff, Those are definitely things to ask the students. There's going to be students that are willing to talk about those things that they hear, and that's important to get that information because it's going to save somebody's life. So the most concerning thing that's going through right now is fentanyl, and that stuff is seriously, seriously deadly, and it is getting into everything. It's absolutely insane. So definitely be mindful about those things. If you have some suspicions about a child or somebody's child or some type of narcotics violations, don't hesitate to give us a call. We're more than happy to look into it for you and do what we can to help everybody out and make sure that everybody stays safe on campus. So, what kind of questions do you guys have as parents? Go ahead.
Just a general thing, what does a J team do?
So we are responsible for any juvenile crimes and any narcotics related incidents that happen on campus or pertaining to juveniles in Santa Cruz.
So besides, obviously, the department has a narcotics bureau. The city has founded us to kind of be a secondary narcotics suppression team. So when we're not investigating or when, luckily we have a detective that files our cases. So instead of it just sitting on someone's desk, like the last 3 cases that we've had that have stemmed from a school within our valley, luckily because we had a detective go down there and personally file it, it's a little different, right? Because we're putting a face that's interviewed people and knows backstories and knows the story of what this guy has done. That person was able to be convicted and sentenced, which is kind of the ultimate goal, right? Because that guy was running rapid to Santa Cruz. He had numerous contacts throughout every school, and he was blown up. And luckily, we were able to stop it. But he was getting into a different realm, and that's where it gets bad because if a student gets a hold of a vape pen or a THC pen from this person, and then the next time it might not be that THC, that vape pen, right? He might try to offer something else, and that's where it kind of spirals out downhill. So when we're not investigating these types of situations, which are passed down by our school deputies or anything that we observe, we're out there in the city, just like any other patrol unit. We're out there looking for drugs and firearms.
About 13 years ago, the team was started because there was an influx of heroin in the valley, and we were getting overdoses like crazy. This is pretty much before social media, before vapes, and before fentanyl. So they'd started the team because it was the same thing, but it was heroin, and we kept having overdoses. So the city demanded that the sheriff's department do something about it. So at the time, Captain Paul Becker created the J team, and it was about enforcement and juvenile enforcement. It wasn't so much going after juvies. That was an educational part of it and diversion part, like they said, but the enforcement part of it was going after the dealers. So we would go all over the place looking for these dealers that landed in Santa Clarita. So anything that had a nexus to Santa Clarita, and then as it develops, obviously vape pens came into it, and then social media a ton as how they're trafficking. Yesterday it was word of mouth, it was text messages, now it's very much modern. So the team continues to hit those vape pens because that's what the kids are getting a hold of, whether it's like I said, laced with anything, or tobacco, marijuana, THC, and all these vape pens, but we still enforce after the hard drugs too. So they'll still go after fentanyl, cocaine, whatever gets into this valley or is a nexus to this valley, they'll hit it like a narcotics team, but they're specific to this valley. So kind of like I'm your dog, specific to this valley. I might work outside of the valley for a nexus to Santa Clarita, but at the same time, I'm dedicated to this station primarily.
What other questions?
What education do you do for our students on campus?
So as far as like situations like these where we do seminars, whenever we talk to students that are involved in that, we provide whatever education that we can. Obviously tell them about,
So no prevention.
Do you know
Yes.
Defy? Do you ever heard of the Defy program?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the Defy program goes around. I think they're funded by the city.
Yes.
DFY. Or,
Yeah.
there used to be something else. I can't remember what it was, but maybe Defy It or something like that. But that program still exists, and we'll go speak in front of. I speak probably 6 or 7 times a year in front of hundreds of students. But it all depends on which school wants it, or if they're willing to bring their kids there. So if there's a Defy program on this campus, it might be separate from you guys, but they actually have the Defy program. I've actually come here and spoke. I've talked to classrooms here, Valencia specifically. So all you have to do is get a hold of the J team and say, hey, we want someone to come talk to this group of students. We'll come in, any of these guys, we can all give the same information, answer the same questions. but because we all have unique things that we do on the team.
Yeah, and we also educate the parents as well,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times the parents fall out of the evolution of how things happen. So like vapes didn't exist back in the day. Nowadays it's like odorless. It's like so small you can barely even tell what it is. So that like locations where they hide it. Social media is a big thing that the kids are doing that the parents don't have any idea of. So we try to bring light to those kind of situations so parents know like, hey, I got to monitor who they contact on social media. Why is my kid going outside at random hours of the day and acting suspicious? Maybe he's meeting up with someone. So just educating the parents on what the trends are and how they can help, like what can help them identify if their kids are using vapes, nicotine, marijuana, whatever it may be.
We also just got a new deputy that's in the VIGA program. That's by the department, and that's kind of a big thing. I know Defy's one of the programs that's out there.
VITA's like an enforcement, like
VITA is more of an enforcement.
rehabilitation.
So it's, they're focused more on the rehabilitation, obviously.
The kids get caught.
It's more of a rehabilitation. It's like a mini boot camp. Obviously, it's a weekend thing, so the kids were instructed to go there by not the school, but
be
if
part
they
of the
enrolled in it,
Thursday.
it's mandatory. So that's also a good resource. He should be starting next week. Yeah, next week. He should be starting next week.
Part of our issue is the laws have changed since I was a young deputy, and it's harder now for us to get information out of a lot of these guys who are dealing or bringing drugs in, because a lot of times the justice system won't accept it as a felony case. Our bargaining power has gone away with actually dealing with informants and stuff like that and trying to get to the bigger fish. So it's a harder process, but the work is still there. It's constant. It's 100%. So it's going.
Any other questions that you guys might think of or have?
Is there a big vaping issue here on Science High School?
Well,
Campus
just-
specifically?
Just
Between
campus, right?
kids and
Everywhere?
general.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the vape shops out here, I know we did operations in the past where they wouldn't ID the buyer. So a lot of kids would go and they'll purchase the vapes from like a local vape shop. So we got in contact with ATF and everything to kind of find them. We've done our own operations to find the business owners and stuff like that. So we've done those in the past, but a lot of the trends that I'm noticing is like 21-year-olds would go and buy in bulk from these vape shops, and then they would go kind of like Uber Eats, using social media, and they'll get in contact with the students and then drive over to them to their place and then sell the drugs to them that way. So I mean, it's an evolving door of like endless opportunities.
Where
like
they
that.
gather too, you can guarantee they're at your football games, they're at your, what was she saying, homecoming? They'll be there. If they can make money off of it, they'll make money off of it. So it might be a 21-year-old or a 25-year-old going buying it, but he has a connect that goes to your school. The connect takes 20 of them, goes there, he knows exactly who's going to buy them. He already has customers before they show up, and he's selling them for more. So it finds its way down into the schools no matter what. So it doesn't matter if someone from the government is buying it and giving it to all the kids, it's going to find its way down there.
Sorry. Just to add on that, I know we had to cover for schools for a week last year.
Yep.
And during my time,
I was here.
during my time at the school I was at, I think everyone had a pretty good grasp on it. They have a good system of the campus supervisors going around, and they kind of already know where it is, right? Or even if it's mostly the same person coming in, or bringing it in. They bring it in for friends, so on and so forth. But they're getting creative now. They look like pens. They look like anything. Keys. I saw one that looked like a key. It's crazy. They're
Flash drives.
yeah,
Yeah,
flash
exactly.
drives,
Flash
pens,
drives, yeah.
keys. Ones that attach to your phone that are super flat. You can't even see them. But yeah, the staff has a very good handle on it, and they stopped it at the door. Every time I was there for a week. They've stopped it at the door. So it kind of prevents the poison from spreading throughout the schools. So I think our school district has a pretty good grasp on how to kind of nip it in the butt before it gets on campus. and I think they're doing a great job from what I saw. I didn't see any issues where it was like hand-to-hand transactions or anything like that. Most of the kids that we spoke to or that I spoke to in my time in schools, they were buying it off campus. Everyone's off campus, social media. Social media, off campus, off campus, off campus. So they kind of know that if they come to school with it, they're going to get killed. Or they're going to get brought up to the principal's office and get talked to. And I was present, and we're not there to like enforce any laws unless the kid's an individual kind of does it repetitively. But we're just there for the information gathering for the most part because it's an adult. Or
I think that's
third-party
probably
entity.
our biggest concern is that it's not, like, the kid can't go buy it. So it's either some contact that they have that's an adult, and they're basically taking advantage of them. I mean, it's something as a kid that is, you know, it's the rebellion, it's the, you know, same way you wanted to break the rules when you were a kid, and we did too, and everybody did, right?
I did.
But these things are, it's becoming a huge problem, and worse now in our society. We're starting to realize and understand, especially in this early age of development, how serious it affects these kids, right? And they want to break the rules, and they're going to try to get their hands on stuff, and that's understandable, but it's, first of all, it's not okay. And second of all, most importantly, it's not okay for an adult to take advantage of that person or that student, that young mind, and affect their growth and their ability to learn, and that is a huge detriment, and we want to prevent that from happening.
And they're child
So-
abuse victims, and we run it as a child abuse case.
Yes, so I mean, that is a huge deal. We understand the kids they're gonna push the envelope. We understand that. And we're not here to punish a child for, you know, learning a lesson and becoming a better person. We're here to make sure that we can prevent these older people that do and should know better from taking advantage of these kids and negatively affecting the rest of their lives. That is the most important thing to us. So it is a big problem. We're just here to stop all of that. Yes.
So I have two questions. Basic one, what is the life of a vape? Like, because you're talking about how they'll, you know, buy so many and sell them out. Are they reselling to the same kid, or, I mean, do they last forever?
So, do you mean a specific?
I don't know anything
A
about
lot of them are disposable, so they'll smoke them for a little while, and then get away. throw
Like
away and
weeks,
get a new
months?
one.
They come in like a variety of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there
some
can be
last
charged
longer than others, some don't, some only last as long as the battery does.
Some you add capsules to it each time you add a new capsule, some you actually add oil. So it could be just depending on what they have. Most of the ones I've seen are the little battery operated ones that are tossed.
The
The thing-
concentration's a
But
lot
like weeks?
stronger.
Yeah, they could last weeks, yeah, of course. And the thing is they're addictive. So, you know, they may just have one, it may only last 2 weeks, but then they're
Just wondering
asking
how
for the
often
next
the
one.
same
So the
person is
concentration
needing
of
to
the
rebuy.
THC is
Oh,
a lot
I mean, that could
stronger
be-
than vape.
A lot.
So
Yeah, it could be a
lasts
lot, it could be, you know, they could have got caught one day and it got taken away or lost it, and they need to buy one tomorrow.
So
or-
my follow-up is, when you do find one on campus on a person, what do they do? Just get sent to the principal? And
So the process is to, they definitely get sent to the principal. There's whatever discipline at the school level for possessing that stuff on campus. And then they notify us. We try to find whatever information we can about where they were able to obtain that, and then work that information backwards to try and find out who was the person that they got it from, and then charge that person. So we book those as evidence so that we can show that there's some level of
Yeah.
narcotics inside whatever vape pen it is, and then prosecute once we find out who that person is.
But the student
The student
is just disciplined at the school level?
The student is disciplined at the school level unless it becomes some serious or it's
Repeat
associated
offender.
to a different crime,
Yeah,
right?
essentially they're a victim first.
Yeah,
Because they were sold something by an adult, and they became the victim of that. So.
exactly. Did you have a question? I think you.
Yeah, I just had a comment. Where do we report it? Because I've seen like between here and the church, this last week, like 5 kids sharing this red vape pen, and I'm like, all these cars, you know, with the traffic, I was sitting there for a good 3 or 4 minutes, and I saw them pass it around like 2 or 3 times. So do we report that to you? Do we let the school know? Like, what can we do?
Yeah, so if it's, specifically, if it's off campus, you can call the sheriff's department, and they'll send a deputy out when they can, okay? Specifically, if it's on campus, you want to notify the school deputy or the staff, and they will make sure that those
Sort of
notifications are made, yes.
Block in the park, you know, it wasn't on the campus, and it wasn't in the church. It it's like.
That's the hardest
the
part.
right place,
We can
right?
go
Yeah.
jam them up and all the kids aren't gonna tell you. So we're trying to figure out where the source. So if you have one kid there that's selling them all, yeah, that's gonna be awesome. We'll find that guy. But if they're just smokers or there's a little bit here, a little bit there, that's not really leading us to a good case that we want. Obviously, we want to keep the kids from smoking it, and there's an education, fraction of the time for education there, but we do what we can as far as what's within the law. But we're trying to get who's supplying that group of kids is what we're looking for.
So it depends. Specifically, there's a very specific delineation there. If it's on campus,
Yeah.
notify staff. If it's not, you can call the sheriff's department and we'll send a deputy down. So once you're past Centurion Way, call the sheriff. Because specifically the schools and us deal with the school aspect of it, and then we deal with the other side of it when it's not on campus. So that's just to specifically dictate who you're going to notify when you see whatever violation is happening. If it's on campus, school first. If it's not on campus, call the sheriff's and you'll get notified.
Yeah, like, what type of behavior action that you should be watching? Like
Sorry,
kids
can you say
are-
that a little bit louder?
If your kids are using vape or other, what kind of behavior should you be watching or paying attention to? Like, what's the
Well, first I have a 16-year-old and he doesn't use it. He's such a dork. He's like, oh, you're gonna catch me snorting marijuana. I'm like, homeschool. So socially he's a little odd. If you're looking, I mean, these guys have talked to the kids that have actually been detained for this stuff. I mostly dealt with like hard drugs and heroin and stuff like that. The vapors, if they're on marijuana, they look like they're on marijuana as much as they would be if they were smoking a joint or something like that. Your eyes are bloodshot, they're lethargic. My main thing, and I talk to my kids all the time, I have a 13 and 16-year-old, I just go and talk to them. And I can tell if you have a pretty good relationship with your kids and you can pass this on to other parents, you're gonna know when your kid's not acting the right ways. It might be depression. It might be his girlfriend broke up with him. I am very open. When my kid got dumped by his girlfriend, he immediately texted me right away. I was the first person he texted, which is sad because I had to hear it, but at the same time, I was the first person. He didn't go to anybody else. I would say develop that type of relationship. I know it's not easy for a lot of parents. They just can't get that close to the kids, but you see them every day. And when I teach people how to pull over cars when we're talking to suspects, people act a certain way. People drive a certain way. It's pattern recognition. You just understand the pattern, and once that pattern has changed, you're like, oh, there's something up. Even if it's something tiny, it might be just worth asking. Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Like my kid, my 13-year-old's growing like crazy, and he's sleeping, like, oh my gosh, sleeping so many hours a day. And I was like, man, maybe he's depressed. And I go in there, he's not depressed. He's just doing his thing. He's growing, and he's tired because he's stretching like crazy. But that was something that caught my eye. I'm like, maybe I need to talk to him, before it's too late, because, we talk about drugs now, but there is other issues. There is suicidal tendencies, there's depression, there's overexcitement, or they're not necessarily on meth. On marijuana or anything. If they're on meth, you're like, something's wrong with my kid. Because they're, or even if they're on Adderall. Adderall's a big college drug. I don't know how much Adderall we get out here, if we get any, but
There's a shortage.
is that why?
Yeah,
No offense, but all the moms took it.
I have ADHD.
Yeah, you have Adderall for ADHD.
Yeah.
If you're prescribed it, it's one thing, but when you don't need it, that's an issue. And then you'll see these kids all of a sudden they're like super focused and everything is getting done. And you're like, okay, well that's good. I'm happy that you did the laundry, the dishes, walked the dogs, picked up the poop, painted the house, mowed the carpet. But you're wondering like what's going on. There's a pattern recognition. So you want to just pay attention to your children. And I'm talking to a small group of people, but if you guys, if you branch out and tell all your friends this is what to look for, that's what to look for. But then there's obvious signs of being under a central nervous system stimulant or a depressant. If they're on alcohol, if they're on vapes, if they're on something like that, their bodies will reflect that drug no matter what it is. So they can't hide from it. And you have to know what a baseline is. When they're at baseline, when they wake up in the morning, they get up, unless they've been on a bender all night. But if they're normal, you're like, okay, this is my child normal. That's not normal. And that's just something to look for. It can be anything. So.
But vaping show signs? Isn't that what you were asking?
Yeah,
About vaping
yeah,
specifically?
if you have
Most of the
nicotine,
time
just like
it's
cigarettes?
THC or
Too.
nicotine, yeah, so
Yeah.
you'll see, bloodshot eyes, they'll be lethargic, if it's, marijuana infused
Yeah.
THC.
Oh,
or
so they're not.
Marijuana infused vapes.
Okay, so this is
So
where
there's
I'm in the
narcotics
I'm just
related to
assuming
it.
it's like cigarettes. It's not. It's
No, there are
what are you
either or.
putting
There are
into
some
the
with
vape?
marijuana and
Yes.
yeah, drugs.
Yeah.
Most of
So-
the people I know who smoke vapes smoke marijuana religiously. THC, they don't smoke nicotine
I thought it was
at all. I think I have one friend who's
That's
addicted to the nicotine ones, but everybody else smokes marijuana. So they're all.
So, but the things that you can look for, are obviously, like ridiculously fruity smells.
Yeah.
They're flavored beyond. It's out of control. So fruity smells. If you're finding out that all of a sudden the window screen's off, like who takes off a window screen? When you're 13, 14, 15, 16, you use the front door. Why is the window screen not on your window?
Here's the point. If you have that window screen off and they're in an upper floor and you guys have tile roofs, it's so easy to remove those tiles and hide things in there. So the tiles that come up against the windows, you'll see them there, and then all of a sudden you'll look down there, there'll be a dryer sheet. Like a dryer sheet, you're like, what? So right outside their window, you're looking out their window, you're like, what are they doing? You think they're going on the roof just to hang out, and they pull those tiles up and they just hide their dope or porn or guns or whatever it is.
So those are the obvious signs to look for. Them trying to hide stuff from you, or not, acting a little more suspicious, or hey, mom, dad, I'm kind of like walking away. Make it a habit to check your kids' stuff. Like, make it a habit. That way, when they come in, it's your guys' obligation to do that. It's not all of their property is something that you purchase, and it's your property that they get to use. So make it a habit. Search their rooms, look through their stuff. And it's important to do that too, because that way you can find out something and you can talk to them about it, and maybe you learn a little bit something about them. Maybe you can help them and prevent them from becoming addicted to substance or something, and it'll benefit their lives. And you guys can grow a little bit from it as well and become closer and understand that you're all here for each other. So
They might know what's going on at school too. You haven't talked to them, but maybe they're nervous about it. You're like, hey, what do you know about vapes at school? Well, this person doesn't, this person doesn't. They know exactly. This guy, Peter comes in and he parks in a red car at the end of the street, and all the kids go there and buy it. And you're like, whoa. I was asking what's going on with you, but that's the information that we're looking for. So.
And that's all good stuff too.
Yeah,
If you find something else that's happening with another kid, and you bring it up to the staff so they can let us know, or if you guys can call us and make some sort of notification or an anonymous tip, and we can look into those. That way we can help a kid as well.
That's happened to us before too, where we've done traffic stops outside of school grounds. Just normal traffic stops after hours, kids are going home, and we know what it smells like, we know what to look for. Therefore, they're detained, right? If they're underage, you're not supposed to be in possession of that stuff. They're detained for the health and safety code, search of the vehicle, find stuff, and then we use, obviously it sucks, we have to contact the parent and tell them what's going on. However, we're not gonna ultimately ruin this kid's life because he made a bad decision, or parents don't know about what's going on in his life. He might be going through some sort of situation. We bring the parent out, let them know what's going on, and we get the information that we need. Obviously, just like my partner said, those all stem from traffic stops that we've done outside of work where, hey, he usually comes to August at the church at 4 p.m. Okay, perfect. Guess where we're going to be at around 5 p.m. or 4:30 p.m. We're going to be around the area. So that way, if we see that car, right, it's kind of an anonymous tip, but we know where we're looking as opposed to just kind of doing our own thing and stopping someone else, as opposed to when we have someone that we can catch readily accessible to us and maybe defeat him selling 5-10 more vapes. So that's.
I know they often come disguised. What's the weirdest disguised vape or paraphernalia you've seen?
Someone that was like a part of a cell phone. It was just a piece of the cell phone that unclipped from it. And the cell phone worked. The cell phone actually worked. So maybe it was the designer who made the cell phone. But it wasn't like an iPhone or
I
anything.
think the crazy, the USB, I saw a USB.
USB, yeah.
That one's pretty
With
weird.
storage on it. USB had storage
Oh, really?
on it, yeah.
I'm thinking you're talking about the person disguised, like
No,
a Hooper clown,
no,
you know,
the
like
vape.
jewelry on or
Well,
something,
like, 'cause some of these here, like
Somebody
they'll have
showed
the
up with a
pens,
mask
they'll be,
Yeah.
like the
I'm
USB
gonna put my
drives, things like
sunglasses on
that.
and watch 247 when school gets out. I'm just this like, who's like walking around suspiciously?
Yeah, honestly, like you recognize on the street, if you know an area, like say you were going in between here and the church, and you're looking at the street, and you know exactly how the kids walk, exactly what they're doing,